Welcome to another video on our Quadrajet series. Today we're going to be explaining how to tear down a Rochester Quadrajet. This is an Oldsmobile carburetor. Carburetor number is 7043252, which means it came off of a 1973 Oldsmobile with a 455, probably a Cutlass or big body sedan. It's not for a 442 or W30 or anything like that. Just, your run-of-the-mill Cutlass with a big block or, big body car. So we're going to tear this down and get it ready for coloring. A lot of times I'll replate them in nickel and sodium dichromate, give it the correct factory finish. But I think for this one, I'm going to do something a little different. Just follow the videos and wait and see, and hopefully soon enough you'll see the finished product. Just hang on. The way I like to tear these down is you basically start on the outside, work around, and then top to bottom. So we're going to start with your choke. When you take your choke thermostat off, 9 times out of 10, just throw it away. It's probably no good, and you can still pick them up pretty cheap on the internet. Plus, sometimes it's hit or miss with the old coil spring inside, whether it'll accept the heat and open up, and there's no sense in rebuilding a carburetor and using the same junky choke. All it is to take that off is just 3 little screws and the little bracket that holds it on. Next step is take your choke pull off. Remove that and the bracket. All it is 2 little screws and a vacuum line. And once it's off, I'm going to show you how to test the pull off to make sure it's good. Okay, we got that off along with your vacuum brake rod. Do not lose this. Just put it somewhere with the rest of your screws, because this is a very important piece and they're getting very hard to find. Now, this is your choke pull off. When your engine starts, your choke's fully closed. This runs off a vacuum. It's got a little diaphragm inside, and once your engine starts cranking, this pulls in and opens your choke just a hair. So that way it lets some air in and car will start up. So if you ever had to hold their choke butterfly open with a pen while trying to crank it, more than likely this part is bad. Best way to test it, turn it over, just hold it in your fingers, try to push down on this piece. If you feel if it doesn't go, it's really stiff, or if you get it down, once you get it down, if you're able to push it down, this one's obviously bad because I can barely move it. You're going to put it down. Remember to take your vacuum line off. Put your thumb over the piece, over the end here, and push it down and hold it. If this slides back out, the choke pull off is no good. Get a new one. But this one is junk, so we're going to replace it. It's held on with this bracket. All you got to do is just bend these little ears here. Just bend them out of the way and slide it out. Be very careful. Do not break these. These brackets are incredibly hard to find. They're very rare because they're only used a few years. And I've looked for some spares. I've never been able to find any. So take great care when you are opening these ears up to get this pull off. Now you can see a little bit better what I was talking about. You've got 40-some-year-old piece of metal, and you do not want to break those ears. Next step is to remove your choke housing, which is just held on by that little screw right inside there. Not that one, that one. Your choke, this is a hot air choke, thermostatic choke. It draws heat through here. There's a tube that runs down to your intake and screws onto here. Heat is drawn through here from this little hole. I don't know if you can see it. It's back in here. Through here from engine vacuum. Now, in between the housing and the body is a little plastic tube that connects the two of them. Those things break all the time. They leak. So a lot of times if they break, either your choke's not going to work, or you're going to have a vacuum leak, or both. Now that it's off, here's a little tube I'm talking about. A new one will come with your rebuild kit. So don't worry if it's broke. Don't panic. It'll come with your rebuild kit. Just make sure you put it back in. It's got a very important job to do. All right, now that this side's all broken down, move on to the front to your fuel inlet. Somebody was nice enough to have this loose for me, so you just unscrew it, put it to the side. You want to check it just to make sure there's no huge chunks of rust or anything like that in there. Definitely get rid of your fuel filter. There was supposed to be a spring inside there, but somebody probably cannibalized it for another job. But that's okay. I've got a bunch of them. Once you have it off, just take a look inside. Look at your threads. A lot of times these are chewed up. Some people cross thread them. And just make sure that they're good shape. These are nice and clean. We don't have to worry. If they are chewed up, there is a helicoil repair kit. Requires a very steady hand because it has to go in absolutely straight. Otherwise, your fuel inlet will not seal. If I get something to point with. On this ridge right along here. The back of your fuel inlet has a little plastic gasket and it seals right along here. So if this thing if you put a helicoil in and it grows in crooked, it's not going to seal and you're going to leak fluid everywhere and it's going to turn this into a big bomb. We don't want that. Next step is to remove your accelerator pump arm, which is this right along here. This green coating is Teflon. It just keeps the metal looking, keeps the metal from rusting. All you're going to do, you're going to take a very small punch and tap on this roll pin in here. Just tap it out enough that this arm will pop off. Because when you go to put it back together, you need to have a little bit of space in here. So you just take a screwdriver and push it back in. Easy breezy. Word of warning, don't hit it too hard because otherwise you can break the ear off. Luckily, I have boxes of air horns that will work just fine for it. But if you happen to do that, they actually have a repair kit. It's a little thread, it's a little knurled insert that'll go over and presses in and locks in, and it'll work just fine. Next step, we're going to remove our secondary rods and hanger, which is just held on by that little screw, and it comes right out. Okay, next thing is to remove the air horn. The air horn's just held on by 9 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 2 little hidden ones. 8, 9. Make sure you take them all off before you try lifting the air horn off, because if you forget one, this is zinc and it's pretty soft and it'll crack. One piece I forgot to mention. This is the link for your choke. Just held on by this screw. This is actually a lock for your secondary butterflies, and once the choke is fully opened, this link will rise. Push this link out of the way and allow for your secondaries to open up. If the choke's closed, as you can see, it doesn't go. This keeps you from, starting it up on an ice cold morning and just, ripping out of the driveway and you're in 3rd gear by the time you hit the street. You don't want to do that. So this actually saves you from blowing up your engine. Okay, now that we got the link out, you can see this is where it hooks onto your butterfly. Here's the rod, and then here's the link for your choke. And the end of your choke slides through here. Once we start reassembling this carb, I'll show you how this goes on. And oh, this is fun to try to put together. As you're tearing it all apart, you want to kind of create separate piles. Piles for stuff you're going to save. Piles for stuff that needs to be cleaned, which is, all this. And then a small pile of stuff you're just going to throw away. Okay, we got the air horn off, and you can start to see some of the inner workings of the carb. This is your accelerator pump, and there's the spring that's down in there in the well. So you just want to take that, put it to the side. This is your power piston, and under it is a spring. You just want to kind of actuate it, make sure it moves. It's not froze up or stuck or anything like that in there. A lot of times they will freeze up in there, and they're a real pain in the butt to get out. So just make sure it's moving. Once you have it out, you're going to clean and polish the piston itself, and also the bore inside the carburetor. Once you get the power piston out, you want to take a look at the tips of your needles. A lot of times when people rebuild these and they don't know what they're doing, these needles will slide into the jet, but you've got to sit there and kind of play with them a little bit to get them to go all the way down in. Sometimes people don't know that, and they just think, oh, it's hanging up, and they smack it. And you'll see that these will come down to about here and then go out 90 degrees, making that metering rod 100% useless. All right, we're coming down to the finish line here as far as the main body goes. All right, this is your fuel baffle. Just wiggle a little bit, pull it out, make sure it isn't cracked or broke or anything like that, and you definitely want to save that. Then here's your float. That, just pull it out, take a good look at it, take your link rod, put it in your pile, make sure your needle's still on it, and take the whole thing, throw it away. Don't ever reuse a float. With ethanol, you want to use brass floats. Do not use nitrofill floats, plastic floats, none of that. That ethanol will just chew that up. All right, now that we can look down in the body, we can see it's pretty clean. There isn't a lot of corrosion. It doesn't look like there was any contaminated fuel, no water that's sat in there and just turned this thing into a big crusty mess. Here's your seat for your needle and seat. And there is the screw, and under it is the check ball for your accelerator pump check ball. We're going to take both of those out. Okay, once you remove that, you can see there's your seat for your needle and seat, and under that is your little gasket. Make sure that gasket comes out, because if it doesn't, and you put a new gasket on top of the old one, that thing is going to leak and flood and cause all kinds of problems. And that is your accelerator pump check ball and its little hold down screw. This one luckily fell right out. A lot of times they get stuck just from corrosion and bad gas and just all manner of garbage in your carburetor. If it does do that, turn the carb upside down, give it a light tap. If it doesn't come out, put some penetrating oil in there, let it sit for a little bit, get in there with a pick and just kind of work it around, and then it should fall right out. But you definitely need to make sure it's out of there. Okay, that concludes part one of Rochester Quadrajet assembly and teardown and disassembly. Watch for part two, and we'll get further in depth on tearing this down, and then watch for the video for reassembly, and I will explain how a lot of these circuits work, what they are, how you make sure they're clean, and signs that if you didn't clean them, what's going to go wrong. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe, and watch for part two. Thank you.